They pushed her into the aisle like she didn't belong there. 22-year-old Alyssa Moore stood speechless as a flight attendant pointed straight at her and shouted, "People like you always ruin flights." The cabin went silent, sunlight framing her like she was already guilty. She had only asked for a different seat, yet somehow she was labeled a threat. And when they tore her boarding pass, something inside her broke. The first shout cut through the cabin like a blade. "You! Out! Now!" Becky's voice ricocheted off the overhead bins, and a wave of eyes snapped toward Alyssa Moore, who stood frozen in the aisle with her boarding pass trembling between her fingers. She had only asked if she could switch seats so she wouldn't aggravate an old shoulder injury. That single request detonated everything. Alyssa lifted her hands slightly, palms open. "Ma'am, I wasn't." "Don't talk back to me," Becky snapped. "People like you always start trouble on flights." Gasps rippled across row 14. A father pulled his daughter closer. A businessman put on headphones with theatrical annoyance. Sunlight poured through the window, outlining Alyssa like a spotlight she never asked for. Becky stepped in, her body blocking the aisle. "You're being removed. Right now." Alyssa's throat tightened. "For asking a question." Becky smirked. "For acting aggressive." The word hit harder than the shove that followed. Alyssa stumbled, her backpack sliding off her shoulder, spilling a pen that rolled down the aisle, an insignificant object, but the humiliation sliced deep. A few passengers looked away, none spoke. Becky signaled toward the front. "TSA pre-alert. Category 2. A murmur ran down the cabin. Category 2 meant threat. But the only threat was the woman misusing her power. Alyssa swallowed hard. "Can I at least explain?" "No. You will step off this plane, or you will be escorted." One sentence, two blows. Somewhere behind her, a child whispered, "Mom, what did she do?" The mother replied softly, "Nothing. I think." Alyssa closed her eyes for half a second, just long enough to feel the weight of every time she'd been talked over, dismissed, misjudged. Then she opened them again. Her voice was barely above a breath. "Okay." But as she stepped toward the exit door, a thin, sharp thought cut through the chaos, "Call her." The jet bridge waited in unnatural quiet, and something inside Alyssa shifted like an engine about to ignite. The moment the plane door sealed behind her, the temperature seemed to drop. Two airport security officers approached, hands resting on their belts, assessing her like someone who'd already been labeled a problem. Becky appeared behind them, crossing her arms with satisfaction. This passenger refused instructions and became verbally aggressive, Becky announced loudly enough for everyone in the gate area to hear. Alyssa blinked. "I never raised my voice." Becky snorted. "That's not what I heard." People in the waiting area stared. A woman shook her head. A teenager smirked. Someone filmed from a distance. The humiliation wrapped around Alyssa like a tightening belt. Her boarding pass, once crisp, now hung limp in her hand. A red slash of ink, Becky's handwriting, marked it with a bold X. A tiny detail, but its meaning was massive, she was already presumed guilty. An officer stepped closer. "Ma'am, do you have anything to say for yourself?" Alyssa drew a shaky breath. "Yes. But not to you." She reached into her backpack, retrieving a small black phone, sleek, unassuming, but tied to a number that only two people ever called her on. Her thumb hovered for a moment, then tapped. The call connected instantly. A calm, steady voice answered. "Alyssa? What's wrong?" "Mom. I was just thrown off Flight 72. They said I was aggressive." "I wasn't." There was silence, deadly, controlled silence. "Alyssa, where exactly are you standing?" "At gate C12. Do not move." One of the officers frowned. "Who was that?" Alyssa lifted her chin, finding a sliver of strength. The one person who'll actually listen. Behind her, Becky scoffed. Oh, please. What's she going to do, write an email? Alyssa didn't answer. But her mother would not write an email. She would move an entire airport. What would you do if this happened to you, echoed in Alyssa's mind, a question she knew millions would ask when they heard her story. Within minutes, Gate C-12 shifted. Subtly at first, airport staff whispering into radios, supervisors stepping out from side corridors, more security arriving but keeping distance. Something invisible pressed into the atmosphere. Becky noticed too. Why are all these people coming here? She's already off the plane. A senior operations manager approached the group. We need everyone to remain where they are. A federal directive is en route. Becky laughed incredulously. A federal what? Then the screens above Gate C-12 flickered. A security alert slid across all monitors, temporary gate suspension, federal authority requested. The entire terminal paused. Becky turned pale. This has nothing to do with her. She's nobody. But Alyssa stayed silent. The kind of silence that breaks people. From the far end of the concourse, 6 individuals in dark uniforms walked in formation. TSA badges. DHS patches. FAA insignias. But the one leading them stood out, a tall black woman in an aviation security commander uniform, stride sharp as a runway landing. Her presence alone parted the crowd. She reached Alyssa in seconds. Show me your hands. Are you hurt? No, Mom. Just tired. The woman exhaled slowly, the kind of breath that comes right before a storm. She pivoted toward Becky. Who is the crew member responsible for the removal? Becky stepped forward weakly. I followed protocol. The commander's eyes were steel. You're telling me you escalated a non-incident into a threat classification? She was aggressive. I have gate footage showing otherwise. Passengers surrounding them murmured. Becky sputtered, but she looked like. The commander cut her off with a voice that shook the windows. Finish that sentence. Becky couldn't. The bottom had finally dropped out. The airport lockdown order hit moments later. All movement around Gate C-12 halted. Airline managers rushed in, pale and confused. Federal agents escorted Becky and 2 officers to a nearby room for immediate suspension pending investigation. Alyssa stood beside her mother, trying to steady her breathing as a sea of passengers stared, not with suspicion, but with dawning understanding. An executive from the airline approached timidly. Commander Moore, we deeply regret. This is not a PR moment, the commander replied. Your crew attempted to criminalize a compliant black passenger. My daughter. The word daughter crashed into the crowd like thunder. The executive swallowed. What can we do? Alyssa finally spoke, her voice low but unwavering. Start by rewriting every training protocol that lets people like her decide who belongs on a plane. Becky, handcuffed nearby, glared. You ruined my career. Alyssa met her eyes. No. You did that when you lied. Her mother placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, not a triumph, but a reminder of dignity. Let's go home. As they walked away, a little girl near the gate waved shyly at Alyssa. I'm glad you're okay. Alyssa smiled. Me too. Behind them, Gate C-12 remained frozen, silent, suspended, holding the weight of everything that had just changed. And somewhere deep inside that silence, a new truth settled. Sometimes the smallest voice, when finally heard, can land heavier than any plane.